When did you first begin to see yourself as an engineer? What experiences helped shape that identity?
Um, I think I always thought I was an engineer since I was six. I always wanted to be one since I was six. But I think the defining experience for me was in 10th grade when I found a broken 3D printer in my high school storage closet. And that really took me from little engineer I am, to the big engineer I am today. So it was broken. It was a Luzbot 3D printer. It was broken, and they let me fix it, right? So I took it upon myself to learn how to fix it. I used the internet, I used YouTube, I took all by myself, I learned how to fix it, and I got it working. And I took it upon myself to teach all that to other kids at the school. And from that experience, I was able to take all my ideas that was in my head, trapped in my head, that were just 2D images on paper, and transport them into real life. So no longer were they trapped in my head, I could put them into real life. And from that, I also learned CAD. I learned that from YouTube. I also learned that from internet. So that's another thing I learned. I learned how to innovate, how to be creative, how to 3D design, right? And also from 3D design, I also learned about materials, right? So that's one engineering thing I learned. And then I thought, okay, I have these 3D, I have my ideas, right? And I can now bring them to life into a 3D space, right? But now I want them to move, right? So then I learned electronics. I learned about servo motors. I learned about motors. I learned about electronics. I learned about power. I learned about circuits. I learned about coding, right? Okay, how do I do that? So I went back to YouTube. Went back to the internet. Went back to books, and I learned that, right? And then I was able to make those things that I 3D printed. I was able to make them move. So now I was able to take things that was in my head. I was able to 2D sketch them, then 3D sketch them, and then 3D print them, right? And then I can make them move. And that all started from a little 3D printer that I found in the storage closet. And now I can have something that was in my head, something I can bring it to life. And I think that's what really what sparked my engineering journey. Because before then, I would just like do random engineering things. Like I always thought I was a software engineer. I would always be building things, playing with Legos. But I think this is really what started my engineering journey. Because never before then, it was always pre-built stuff. Never before could I actually design something and build it myself. This also taught me how to learn, because I had to learn all this stuff by myself. So this taught me how to teach myself. And I think that's a very important skill engineers have to learn. Teaching how to teach yourself. So yeah, I think that was the defining moment how I saw myself as an engineer. Like finding that 3D printer really sparked how I became an engineer.
When did you first begin to see yourself as an engineer? What experience helped shape that identity?
Yeah, so I would say the moment when I first started considering myself as an engineer was honestly pretty late in my academic career. I would say it's sophomore year of university. I joined a couple of design teams in freshman year, and I started getting into the groove of things in sophomore year. So I had more responsibilities, and I was actually seeing how my problem solving in freshman year was kind of culminating towards a bigger goal and helping society. And honestly, it's pretty late in my academic career because throughout high school and middle school, I really did not see myself as an engineer. Honestly, I didn't really know what one was until I entered high school. And although I was kind of gravitating towards STEM and, engineering concepts in high school, throughout middle school, I just, didn't know what it was. And it was only in university when I was like, you know what? I have, a passion for STEM and I'm a creative person. So I think mechanical engineering would make sense, which is kind of what led me to it. But as for my identity as an engineer, that didn't develop until much later in undergrad.
Have there been moments where you questioned your identity as an engineer? What caused that?
Definitely. Basically when I came into college, I saw so many people with so many projects on their resume, and I thought to myself, I have so many of these skills, but I never took the time to put those skills together to make projects. I see so many people with their robot arms and their drones. And I'm thinking like, I know how those things work. Why haven't I put my skills together and made those type of things? And that really like, I guess, frightened me. Like, can I really do this? Why haven't I did this before? And I don't know, that really scared me. So I think that was a really time that I really like second guessed myself as an engineer, and my skill set.
Have there been any moments when you questioned your identity as an engineer? What caused that?
Definitely, man. And I have to say it's an ongoing process. So there's some days where I feel a little bit less like an engineer than others, but I would say that kind of the paramount moment where I really questioned my identity as an engineer was the end of freshman year. It was the first time that I had to withdraw from a class, and it was an engineering class. And it absolutely shattered me at the time. And I was asking myself questions like, am I smart enough for this? And am I meant for this? You know, I just felt a lot of self-doubt and I guess regret for choosing this path, given that I'm someone who's always tended towards the humanities and the arts. So that's something that I had to overcome by realizing that one failure wasn't a permanent setback in my career as an engineer and in my identity as a person. And once I kind of realized that and spoke to other people, honestly, that's what really helped, was talking to other people and learning that it's okay to, you know, have to retake a class. I realized that, and I retook the class in the fall, and I passed it. And I understood the concepts, I guess, a little bit more than I would have if I passed it the first time. But that was one of the really huge moments where I considered, am I really an engineer? And I overcame that by just talking to other people and regaining that confidence in myself.
In what instances have your experiences helped you support students who are still developing their own identities as engineers?
I have a good story. So it was this one student, and he wanted to ask. He was a new engineer, freshman engineer, and he wanted to know more about the program. And I was able to show him, and my experience as a second year, I was able to show him all about the clubs, all about the different projects you should be doing, how to build your resume, what classes you should be taking. And I feel like as an engineer, as a second year engineer, I was able to guide him through all the pitfalls that I may have fallen into. I think that's one of the benefits of being like a older engineer, that I can show them the pitfalls that you don't want to fall through as an engineer. I think that's one of the benefits. Help students.
In what instances have your experiences helped you support students who are still developing their own identities as engineers?
Yeah, I guess I'll give you my favorite instance. I was a peer mentor. I think I was in my sophomore or junior year. And there was a student during office hours who I was helping out, and she seemed really enthusiastic. Once she had already we had walked through the steps of solving the problem that she came in for, she seemed really enthusiastic about the class, Engineering, Design, and Society, that I was TAing for. And she had a bunch of different questions outside of the scope of what she came in for. And I could tell, wow, you have a lot of passion for this. And she asked me questions about 3D printing and Arduino and kind of the job. And I could see that she had the type of personality that was curious enough to be really successful as a peer mentor. So she asked me questions about being a peer mentor, and I told her the steps in the process, and I gave her a lot of encouragement that, you know, she was valid. And even though there were things that she didn't know, like, you know, the reason she came to the office hours, she would still be a great fit for a TA, and now we're coworkers. So it's my favorite example.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility as an engineer? If so, to whom or to what?
Yeah, I do feel a sense of responsibility as an engineer, not only to myself, but to the people I serve. I understand that anything I build will probably be used in some way to help society or the community as a whole. So I feel like it's my responsibility to give it my best and to do whatever I do ethically and to the best of my ability. I feel like as an engineer, as all of us as engineers, we should all give our best to anything we do, and our responsibility to make sure that it is safe for all end users.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility as an engineer? If so, to whom or to what?
I definitely feel a sense of responsibility as an engineer, and it's something that kind of developed over time as I kind of saw the scope of what I was doing as a mechanical engineer broaden as I took more classes and realized, wow, I can do a lot of things. This is a very diverse major, and it's something that you can get into many different areas. But with that comes a great responsibility, and the first responsibility I feel is to society, because I realize that whatever I do as a mechanical engineer, even with my art background, will impact people, and I want that impact to be positive always. So that's something I always consider with my work. The second responsibility that I feel I would say is to the environment, because I think it's something that many engineers, or all engineers honestly, should take into consideration with their work, just because, we have a shared responsibility to the environment. And I guess the third would be to my family, just personally, because they've supported me so much on my journey to becoming an engineer. I'm first generation, and it's something that, I know that whatever I do with my work as an engineer will impact my family, and I want that impact to be positive. And then finally, I feel a responsibility to myself in my work as an engineer, just because I have to hold myself to a standard, knowing that I'm impacting society, the environment, and my family with whatever work that I do.